Hello, my name is Matt McIvor. I'm a singer-songwriter from Newton Abbey. My earliest memories of music was my mum playing and singing. She was all into Simon and Garfunkel and those kind of folk things. My dad was all into like alternative rock, album-orientated stuff. And so somewhere between like fancy guitar playing and vocal harmony is where I land, probably based off both of those folks. I played guitar in church when I was a kid, and then formed a band in the mid to late 90s with a load of my friends, and we would play, Christian type events, but then people who had met at those events started to get married, and so we became a wedding band and started to be the wedding band for the people who would meet at our gigs. And that was an awful lot of fun. I didn't do much with music for a long time, and I've just come back to it recently. I've been recording other people, but during the pandemic, I couldn't have anybody into the studio, so the plan was, I've been telling everybody I was a songwriter for 20 years, and they all said, prove it. When your tires are flat, your journey's been long, your tank is empty, everything is wrong, but you can't stop driving, you're too far from home. Turn up the radio, sing along, 'cause even the saddest songs are an antidote. All the clever lines that you wish you wrote, let them hold you close, sing them from your heart, regain your resolve for another start. There's always been a guitar in my house. My mum had this really out of shape echo guitar. The neck had bowed so far that it was absolute torture to play. But then my brother introduced me to an electric guitar. He borrowed one off a friend when I was about 13 or 14, around about the time bands like Metallica started coming out, and all of a sudden I wanted to be one of those people who could play 100 notes a minute. 100 notes a second would probably be more accurate. But yeah, I went down that sort of alternative rock route, was very much into like Pearl Jam, Nirvana, Alice in Chains, all of those kind of bands, until a friend started taking me along to an event in Belfast called the Real Music Club, and there I got exposed to acoustic guitar music, sort of folky acoustic guitar music, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, I want to do that. That's the thing. So I started off in acoustic, went to electric, came back to acoustic, and now sometimes I play electric for other people, but acoustic guitar is very definitely my main instrument. That's where I write songs. I no longer smoke, but I'm getting by, I've got room for hope. I keep my cheeks dry and I fill my days with work and caffeine. Can't help but crave for nostalgia, for a memory, for a time that was, for faces and names that all now have changed. I started to write songs whenever I was about 15 or 16, and there was the usual motivation of there was a nice girl and I wanted to kind of impress her, and being a ginger man, the best way to try to punch up slightly is to play guitar and write sweet songs. I wrote some really terribly cringy love songs for some people that I liked back then. Hence why I probably didn't write anything else for at least another 15 years. And it was really only through things like Lagging Sessions, this weekly set of gigs, and it was at a point where I was starting to do sound for people, and I just got entirely captivated by the performances that were going on there, and I wanted to play, but there was a no cover policy, And so I could play covers all day long, but it was, I think David McCann came to me and said, you can play anytime you want to, you just have to write some songs. And that really spurred me on to do that. And so I tend to write songs not necessarily from personal experience. I tend to write songs about the things that are going on in other people. I don't like talking about myself too much. I like to talk about other people and tell stories. And so that's what I've been up to for the past little while. I see petrol coupon coffee mugs. They're drinking down Maxwell House or Mellow Birds or Nescafe Fine Blend. It was all so simple way back then, in their little offices on the same floor of the same building. My dad and his brothers were traveling salesmen. They sold shirts and suits, ties and lingerie. Everyone was up there in a row, in Howard buildings, a hallway full of business and mischief, and the smell of coffee. And the smell of coffee. The songwriting process tends to start for me with some sort of little riff or some sort of clever line that comes along that I think, gotta muck about with that a little bit. It's usually a melody first, and I would play a melody over and over and over again. And I know this is an old cliche. A lot of people talk about this as if there is a song there that's kind of trapped under rock and you have to kind of chisel away at it to find where it is. But I would start to play something. I would start to see what words fit around that structure of notes, what rhyme scheme would get in there. Honestly, I usually write a song twice because I kind of pack out a song with the words that I think fit, and then I think back at it and go, that could be better. And so I do a lot of editing and come back at it. Then I do tend to go to a lot of open mic nights and just play those songs in front of people, because 9 times out of 10, if it works in front of people, I keep it. And if it doesn't work, I kind of push that to the side and leave it. But I love playing out live anywhere that I can and do it as regularly as possible. The streetlights out on the road have changed from orange to white, and they make for a better scene as I'm walking late at night. Like an old gangster movie, you can float in between all the dark, empty blackness and the focused light beams. Now the road's a little wider these past few years, and over by the steps I see a lone bottle of beer that someone had emptied as they went on their rounds. At least they chose not to leave it all smashed on the ground. The street light illuminates a late night walk around a housing estate. There's the church building vacant where my grandfather wept as he prayed for the souls that he had not met yet. Back when people were decent, or that's what we thought. Maybe way back in those days it was harder to get caught. Still those street lights illuminate a late night walk round a housing estate. It's always good if you have an underpinning narrative that goes through any sort of complicated piece of work, an EP or an album. And my current album that I'm working on is called One Word Stories. It's a collection of stories that I wrote about different people, but whenever I sat those songs down and looked at them, it almost looked like it was telling this story of a person. So I made up a fictional person and took that character and put him through reasonable hell, and have arranged the songs in such a way that, you know, you're sort of seeing highs and lows. You're seeing the good times this guy had, the times this guy had, and it helps if there is something to write about first. It helps if there is a motivation there. I find that I don't just kind of scattergun write songs. You know, you might want to write an EP all of love songs and think about all of the experiences over your life that those have you've had great times or bad times, and so you might write about love, you might write about divorce, you might write about whatever topic it happens to be. But that's what I do. I'm always looking for that narrative that I can weave through songs. For my current album, I found that there was a couple of songs that were missing. There was a couple of parts of the story that were missing, and I sat down to record, you know, what were the missing pieces. And so once you get those core songs in place, you can kind of figure out what you want to do next. I asked how she was, she couldn't complain. She said, I just took enough to numb the pain. I only do it when I'm drinking. Still, I'm not really sure what I was thinking. The stupid boys are such a shame. I'm still looking for one to take my name. As we reclined in the sun, oh, she said I could fall in love with anyone. In the park, in the park, in the park today. In the park, in the park, in the park today. Circling wasps are putting me on edge. I think there's a nest of them in that hedge. It's my only phobic fear, yeah. I'll always run away when they draw near. In the park, in the park, in the park today. In the park, in the park, in the park today. I find outside of Belfast, the music scene is much more stable. It seems that within Belfast, when gigs are on, they're not necessarily that well attended. There's maybe too much choice. There are so many things happening, and there's so many talented people here at the moment, that I find whenever you go to those small venues outside Belfast, people really appreciate that you've made the effort to come there. And so you do tend to get many more folks outside. That being said, the community of people within Belfast are providing platforms for every kind of music, which is lovely. And I think it's a real fantastic melting pot right now. We've got every kind of music from every kind of person, and it's class. Well, I do enjoy playing solo because you can mess around as much as you want to. You can speed up and slow down and not be beholden to anybody else. But I have the real joy at the moment of playing in a couple of different bands. My friend Sarah McCready and I have a band called Fall Coffee Collective. We've only got one song out called Ribcage, and I'll probably play a bit of that for you in a wee minute. But also I get to play with Ava, and I just have to play guitar and sing, and that's a joy and a delight, because, you know, the emphasis on the performance is on somebody else and you're just joining in. But yeah, I do enjoy all of those things. By myself is fun, but with others is much, much more fun. Is it me are we not the same? Could it be we're shifting all the blame? Lies and fear fill up every screen. Nobody believes a word they read. Things get so hard these days. Believe me when I say that if you get lost sometimes, don't know where to rest, you find yourself just under the ribcage, in the middle of my chest. If you get lost sometimes, don't know where to rest, you find yourself just under the ribcage, in the middle of my chest. The first thing to do is, write as much as you possibly can, even if you think it's junk. Writing is like a muscle. You have to develop that. And so even if you don't think this song you're working on right now is great, keep at it, keep going. You'll get an instinct for what's good and take those things out. There is an open mic somewhere in Belfast, Bangor, in the local surrounding area every single night of the week. It's all well and good, like I said before, playing at home, playing to your mum, but once you get out there in front of people, you've nerves to battle, you've got performance anxiety or imposter syndrome. The more you practice in front of people, the more that muscle memory builds and the better you become at this. I'm on Spotify and Apple Music and all of those usual streaming places as Matt McIvor, McIvor. You can find me at mattmcivor.com, and you can find me in all of the usual places like Instagram and TikTok at Matty McIvor, Matty McIvor. The morning light pierces the cage at the door. The room somehow smells worse than the night before. I locate the culprit asleep on the floor. I best get the coffee pot on. I offer a cup. He looks up from the tiles, regains his composure, and offers a smile. He might tell the whole truth, but not for a while. It's still too early to tell. It's still too early. He's been burning the candle. He's had much more than he can handle. And he says it wasn't like this when I was a young man. These 3-day hangovers weren't part of the plan. How did I get from where I was to where I am? I guess the Lord only knows. I guess the Lord only knows. There was a couple of mistakes in there, but there's no need to use all of them.